Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am one of your four hosts today, Donnie, and we will be discussing the value of happiness. I am on the west side, and I would like to introduce.
Omari Jackson over here in the north side.
Oh, okay. Um, Caleb in the east side.
Grayson in the south.
And like I said earlier, we will be discussing the value of happiness, and we have a little bit of a story to tell you.
Okay, so we're starting off with this story of two polarized individuals. They start off, they're both 5, kindergarten. One of them has a happy life. It doesn't really matter the specifics. The other is starting out in a family situation where he's not accepted. Maybe he's got like 7 siblings or something. It's really weird, but he's not individualized and accepted. They go on to middle school, and the boy with 7 siblings gets depressed, and the other one's academically doing well. The depressed person's grades dropped, and now we're in high school. One of them doesn't go to high school. He drops out. He does drugs. He's homeless. And the other is in an IB program, struggling with academics, doing fine, but the stress level is getting to his head. All right, the discussion today is going to be focused around who's the happiest, what's the value within life. This man who's homeless is probably experiencing more with friends, other individuals, than this other man who's stuck at home doing homework all the time.
I think it's important to preface that the homeless person is not necessarily homeless to the point that he's starving per se, because obviously that would introduce much more unhappiness than by living fine. So for the purpose of this example, we're analyzing the homeless person not necessarily as homeless to the point of starvation and struggling, but to the point of maybe not working as much and enough money to get by and just experience things.
He's living on his own real early. He's the lone wolf, cool kid, the guy you see skipping school all the time.
So then that brings up, how do we establish happiness, and how does that value ourselves or others?
Well, in terms of the IB student, and from the example, I truly believe, even though he may not be as happy now, in the end, his happiness will far surpass the other, just because of the way that he sets up his future life.
Well, I feel like the person is stress-free right now isn't going through anything that is super detrimental to his mental state, so he's probably somewhat happier. He's free. I mean, let's say he's not a stable job person, but I mean, we all know someone who's not completely in a stable job position and maybe out of school, but they're not like depressed, and they're probably going through something right now that they need to look for something, so they have a little bit of some stress or distress in their history, I guess. But I think they're really happy overall more than the other person.
I believe it's kind of like a spectrum, kind of like, imagine the homeless guy or the guy in poverty as a level 3 happiness, but he can only hit a max cap of level 5 happiness, whereas the IB student may be at level 1 happiness, but he can get a max cap of level 8 happiness. So I believe that going through the struggle to unlock like a higher potential is like worth it, I guess.
Well, just because you go through a struggle now, that may lead to monetary success, but as we all know, monetary success does not equal happiness. The saying always goes, money can't buy you happiness. And of course, it can help you feel happy at times, just like the person or the dropout is now, because he has just enough money to get by and he's experiencing things. And sure, money can open the opportunity to more experiences later in life, but also the time we're in now, in early 20s, etc., like from here on out, that's like the prime of our lives, right? Like that's it. So by using a lot of our time here in the IB program or in similar situations, it seems almost like we're wasting it to an extent. I mean, of course, we're setting up a better life later on, but at the cost of our, not necessarily our childhood, but these years you know? I don't know.
That's a valuable point to make. The struggle, but even though we are going through so much now, as an IB student or as the IB student would be, there's still that potential to go farther and further and to reach his dreams and goals, which is really the purpose of your life. Is if you have a goal, you find your purpose.
Yeah. So that's where I want to like kind of counteract the monetary value. Whereas money cannot buy happiness, finding what makes you happy can make you happy. And I feel like going through like that type of system, it gives you a lot. Like you have way more options. You have a better chance to choose what college you want to go to, which you can set up the profession that you want to do, and in doing that, you can like collect your dream, like achieve your dream job, and whether or not it gives you a lot of money or not, it's what you want to do. And I feel like going through the process gives you more of a choice to do what you want to do, whereas the homeless person is more or less being happy in what he can do and not what he wanted to do.
Okay, I think something important that you said there was he gets the chance to choose his choice college, which means there's no guarantee that this guy who just struggled for his first few years of life is going to get there. Now, we could say that, yeah, maybe he's the star student. He's the guy who actually gets somewhere. But he might not be. There's no guarantee that this guy is going to struggle and go through the pain right now and actually get somewhere. There are plenty of people who go through the IB program and get nowhere.
Exactly. Like, imagine getting through the whole IB program and then failing that test, or maybe not getting all the CAS hours you needed.
Hashtag
Or-
relatable.
Yeah, I'm sure one of us will end up doing that. But just imagine it. Just imagine it. The crushing defeat that would be. So isn't it easier to not have this risky gambit of working so hard up into nothing, or working so hard into maybe a job you hate? Like, just because you do IB doesn't mean you're guaranteed a job that you're going to love or you're going to make a lot of money even. Like, none of this is guaranteed. However, say you chose the route of the dropout. I think that rhymed. Okay. If you chose the
Bars.
route of the dropout, it's almost guaranteed happiness to an extent if you can get money, that is.
And I agree with that. It's high risk, high reward. It's a gamble, and that's why I kind of think it's like the spectrum. Like the homeless person might start at level 3 of happiness and can get up to level 5, but starting at level 1 and trying to get to level 8 in terms of like the IB student may be way more difficult. However, it's still possible. It's a risk, and I personally believe that risk is worth it.
Okay, I have a serious problem right now. We are told in schools that gambling is bad. And yet right now in this school, I am gambling my life by risking my personal happiness and setting it upon this IB program to be more stressed and hope that I get somewhere then. I'm literally dealing with the devil to see if I can go somewhere.
That's very true. Like, as a personal example I'm sure we can all relate to, we've seen those people who may have dropped out. And if you see them now, they're all happy. Like, I'm serious. I think everyone who's dropped out, all I see them is smiling and happy. And of course, that's not the life you want to have of complete happiness. But it's sure a lot better than what Grayson said, gambling your life away. To an extent, that's what it is. Gambling your life away for maybe a good job that pays you money and you hate your life. You know what I mean?
Well, that may be true, but there's a difference between initial happiness and long-term happiness. If your initial happiness comes from having a little work, not having to do so much, not putting effort into it, and being able to get by with a decent amount of work, yeah, you're happy now, but later on, what if that gamble doesn't pay off? Because either way, there's a gamble involved. Because if you do the high risk, high reward with diploma IB, sure, there's this chance that it all goes downhill and you don't make it. But there could still be that chance with certificate. Like, you still have that same potential of not making it. You still can, and you could fare better than the actual IB student. But if in the case that you don't, there's that issue that you'd have to address.
Okay, so we're often referring to this as also a gamble, and and I'm gonna kind of dive into more specifics now since we've already kind of touched the outlying. So like when a large problem with people who gamble is that they like, end up losing all their money. They don't know when to place their bets, and they don't know when to step out. And I believe it's not just a gamble. Like you have to take an educated gamble. You got to know when to place your bets, when to go in, when to step out, and and that's why like in terms of like school, you say school tells you not to gamble, but either way you're gambling your life. I think it's like you got to choose what you take from school. You got to choose what you decide to gamble, and like for a good example, like how you were saying not to gamble thing. I mean, regardless of anything, you're at a point where you can think logically. Well, this may or may be worth a gamble, or may not be worth a gamble, and it's up to you to decide that.
Well, I'm not sure. Like, picture the alternative of passing. It's like just picture the crippling. I know people say crippling depression a lot, but like in all honesty, imagine watching all of your friends graduate with IB diplomas, and you're that one person sitting there without one. That would be like soul crushing. It'd be impossible to deal with. So I think the problem with doing IB and having this gamble is, where is the line to be drawn? Where is the line of this isn't worth it anymore? Because we're already in our junior year. We're almost done with it. Like, we're over halfway through this year. At what point can we draw the line anymore? Or should we have, if we truly followed this path, would we have to have dropped out our sophomore year? Freshman year, never even joined? Like, at what point is the gamble no longer, quote-unquote, worth it? You know what I mean?
The problem I see is that we're getting to somewhere where we can't drop out. If we
Exactly.
drop out now, we'll have this issue where we have to make up the credits that CAS would cover. CAS covers those art hours, those PE hours, and stuff like that. And so if I was to drop out right now, I would spend the same amount of stress for getting less. So it's kind of like a point of where we're at this thing where we can't return. And another thing, this man who's doing drugs, he's homeless. Maybe, yeah, he's happy now, but he doesn't have to live forever. The saying goes, I can't remember who it is, but die young, leave a pretty corpse. So if he were to die young, but happy when he died, if he's happier for those 20 years that he lived than this struggling man ever will be coming out of IB, was it really worth it to go through IB? Yeah, maybe he can, when he's older, he'll probably buy a fancy car, or he'll have a okay retirement, but he's out of his prime. This man died in his prime, and he was happy the entire time he was doing it.
I think at that point it comes down to the type of person, like whether or not you think it's worth the long term, or you just want the short term in and out, And I mean, like a prime example of that is even like homework. Like some people find a use for it, and some people don't. It can be useful for some and not for others.
I don't know. I just, like Grayson said, and I guess like you said, it might come down to the person, but if we look at everything we do in life, what is it for? I think happiness, is it not? We do things to impress other people, or we do things to make ourselves satisfied, or we do things to have the prospect of getting more happiness later on. But if we think about it, does that really make all that much sense to an extent? Like, if we sacrifice everything to be happy later, what is the point of going through the now if there's no greater happiness to be achieved? I mean, hold on. Like you said with the IB student, they have a happiness of 1 but have the prospect of an 8. But still, there's such a limited chance of achieving that happiness. And people can feel satisfied when they're older, or they can feel accomplished. But when they look back on the days they spent doing that IA or doing that homework, do they look back with longing, like most people should? Because it's our prime, is it not? Like, we're supposed to be living. Do they look back, or do they look back with contempt at their past selves, is all I mean.
Yeah. Well, see, I hear what you're saying, and that's why, to get more specific, what you're saying is like right, but I still think it comes down to the person. Because, for example, or not an example yet, but like how you were discussing how what would be the point of their life, what they should do with it, and I think personally, I really think that to get something out of life, you have to set a long term goal for yourself, and you need those short term goals to get to the long term goal to keep you like satisfied. And like for example, personally, my long term goal would be like to affect someone else, to like truly change someone's life, benefit it, or even more than one person. But if I could at least get one person, that would make me happy. So I want to do it as much as I can now to get the resources to be able to help other people. And like I don't think I could do that from dropping out. I think it's worth it to go through this program because it will provide me with enough resources to do what I want in life, and that would make me happy.
Yeah, going off of what Amari said, being able to make other people, help other people, benefit other people, that is a great source of happiness and stuff. But there's also, um, there's a philosopher, I don't know his name, I forget, but he talks about life consists of pleasure and pain, and the goal of life is to have more pleasure than pain. So although you suffer pain throughout your high school career going through this IB diploma, as our example student would be, there's the prospect would far outweigh it, I feel, because you could potentially get so much farther and have so much pleasure, so much more relaxation. You wouldn't have to suffer, and even if you wouldn't have the side effects of what the dropout would have and how that affected him dying young, even though the IB student could live longer, he would be able to do more with his life.
All right, another thing. This is a really depressing episode so far. But it's this IB guy. Life is a risk. Life is pain itself. And this guy, this IB graduate, he could graduate, and then someone somewhere is an IB graduate who's died in a car crash immediately after graduating. And I know it's sad, but someone somewhere has gone through that. And that means they struggled for those 18 years and went to the same place this man went, going and enjoying his life.
That's true. Like, life is never guaranteed. You never know when that loved one or even you will die. This is a sad episode, but it's been on. I think it's been on our minds. I think it's been on a lot of our minds regarding IB and what we're going through right now. So it's important, but it's interesting to see the problems with this, as in. It seems almost like it's just a difference between long-term happiness and short-term happiness in which the person values more. The IB person obviously values long-term happiness. The dropout probably values short-term happiness. But my argument for the person who dropped out, it's still possible for them to achieve long-term happiness. It still is. They can still work up to a position they feel satisfied with. They choose when to sacrifice that happiness in the moment. However, with the IB student, once they graduate, it seems almost as if, well, now that you've suffered that much, you want to be happy. And yet there's still so much work ahead to achieve that. There's so much work to be had after high school. We're talking about it like it's almost done. Like, we're going to be out, we're going to go to college. And, of course, there are fun things to be had in college, but what is college for? It's IB Part 2. It's more work. It's over and over.
IB the sequel.
IB the sequel, college, where we cry more than we usually do about our grades. I don't know. It's long-term happiness and short-term happiness, I guess.
It's upsetting to talk about all this stuff. And this drug addict, like Caleb said, dropout, drug addict, whatever you want to call him, he could go somewhere with his life. I mean, there's people. Gosh, Eminem went somewhere with his life, and he didn't even have any college degrees, and he's one of the most renowned people in America. I mean, he's up there, but he didn't go to college. He didn't go to IB Part 2. He didn't even go to IB Part 1. And he's somewhere. He is a something. And some of us who go to IB Part 1 and 2 probably won't be as much of a something.
Yeah. But the same can be cited for the other side, Like, going through IB Part 1 and 2 could get you somewhere, just as not going through it could also get you somewhere. And I think the difference lies between, let's say, like, the IB, for an example, would be hard work now, relax later. It might be far later, as you said, Caleb, but still, like, you could get there if you make it through. And I feel like the opposite, the homeless person, the drug addict, is kind of like chill out now, hard work later, because what Eminem didn't get to where he got living the same way he lived being happy. Like, once he was like, I feel like once he got to a point where he was like, okay, I'm satisfied, but I want more, he worked hard to get there. So either way, it seems like you got to work hard to get happy.
And that's still a huge risk to, even though a normal high school career, many students do well after high school and go to college. That's a risk to do normal high school, not go to college, and try and become someone like Eminem. It's a huge risk, just like going through IB and then IB Part 2. That's a huge risk as well. So there's a risk. There's always going to be a risk involved, and it's whether or not you're willing to take that risk. And if you're happy with knowing that the risk you took could potentially fail you or benefit you in either the most beneficial way or the most detrimental way.
Yeah, but okay, what you're saying relates to both of these. It can be detrimental or beneficial both ways. And the risk is pretty similar. I mean, they're both pretty major risks. I mean, if I dropped out now, if I dropped out senior year, if I didn't pass the test, I don't even get my high school diploma. Like, if I don't sit for the tests, I don't get my high school diploma. If my CAS hours are canceled, I don't get my high school diploma. So I just went through this pain, and I've got nothing. I'm practically a middle schooler.
So we kind of started this. It seemed like we tried to like draw a division between it, but I don't think there is one. I think in the end, life just sucks. Honestly, like regardless, you gotta work hard at some point to get what you need.
Yeah, we keep coming back to the contention between short-term happiness and long-term happiness, and I think it just depends on what the person wants. Do you want to become a doctor? Do you want to help people?
Be a YouTube superstar?
Do you want to be Jake or Logan Paul? Quick, easy steps. Don't do IB Part 2 if you want to be Jake or Logan Paul.
Low gang.
Low gang for life. That's all I got to say.
Want to be Jake or Logan Paul? Go lose a few brain cells.
There you go. But aside from that, like Omari's goal, for example, of helping one person, that seems, in the way we were talking about it, more like a long-term goal. And for him, IB seems like a great idea. It contributes a lot towards the long-term happiness that most people strive for. And I think, obviously, that's why we're all in it, and that's why we're doing this right now for CAS hours, because as much as we talk about it, I'm pretty sure none of us plan on dropping out tomorrow. But when you go home today, what are you going to do?
And I'm going to kind of take it away from that point.
Wait, hold on. Let me finish my point. That was a little weird. When you go home today, what are you going to do? Okay, that was a terrible place to end. What I meant by that is, like, are you going to go home and immediately start on your homework, or are you going to go chill out or go to the gym or do something that makes you happy?
Yeah, off of that, that's what I wanted to say. I feel like when achieving a long-term goal, the only way you can stick it to, like, make sure you can do it is by having short-term goals or things that can give you quick bursts of happiness. Like, for example, I play video games. I like winning my video games, and that keeps me happy. It keeps me going. Even, like, let's say I'm doing homework and it's frustrating me. Fine, I'll just go play a few games of League, and hopefully I'll win and not get tilted. But if I win, I'm like, okay, that's dope. All right, let me get back to work. as long as you can balance it out, keep getting yourself those short bursts of dopamine, I feel like it gives you what you need to get to your long-term goal. And like on the opposite side, I feel like you keep sustaining yourself with the short-term happiness long enough for you to get to a point where you're like, oh, I can get this long-term goal now. It doesn't seem so impossible.
If you have a long-term burst of dopamine, that you need more to be happy later. So for the drug addict, let's say, he's going to need more, and that's just how it works. That's how addictions work. You need more. But like Amari said, with playing games to get and to win, and then getting happy and dopamine from that, those small little bursts, it's enough to keep you going and to refocus you on your main goal. Because you can have small goals within your much larger goal of whatever you want to do with your life, whatever you want to succeed at or have the chance to succeed at. And those short bursts of dopamine, that helps with that. It keeps you going. It gives you that motivation that you might not have. So I feel like there's a balancing act somewhere, because you don't want to exhaust your dopamine to where you need something else to make you happy. You want to find a way that you can keep yourself happy and balanced in the best possible way.
I think we all have a common enemy here. Depression is death. No matter what, if this person gets depressed, he doesn't want to be an IB anymore, or he doesn't want to go look for a job anymore. He wants to go down the road of being a complete addict, doing all the drugs at the same time. And this guy wants to do the same thing, This IB guy, he dropped out because he got depressed. Depression is
Our
the
enemy.
enemy. Yeah.
Kill him.
Okay,
That's-
well, see, a logical progression from that is if depression is the common enemy and stress, depression,
All those
I don't
bad
know,
boys.
everything part of IB, that's what it's doing to us. We're having this stress, and it's basically just giving the possibility of happiness later on. But I think we all need to ask ourselves, is the stress worth it?
I mean,
Is the depression for our time and age, is it worth it for the off chance that we all pass the IB tests and everything goes swimmingly? Is
Yeah.
it worth it?
Yeah, that's what I've been trying to say too as well. Like, up to you to decide what's worth it, and also just like the sad part is it seems like the stress and depression at this point comes from everywhere. Like even if we don't do this, we take the easier classes and we just breeze through. It's gonna come from somewhere else, like life at home, for example, or you got more time now to do other things since you're not an IB anymore. So you decide, hey, let's get a job. I need some money, and now there's like stress from this job, something like. It seems like everyone in life that stress and depression are going to come from somewhere. And you know what we need to start doing? We form an alliance and we turn on them. We eliminate stress and depression. We should just develop like weapons made out of medicine, right?
Kick it to the man. You know?
Yes. Imagine like medicine bombs that go in your brain and just like blow up depression.
That would be quite the interesting thing. However, another thing that I found really interesting is we're talking a lot about money. How does money play into all this? I think we need to discuss money. Is money the contributor to happiness, or does it contribute to depression? I think that's an interesting thing to bring up.
I definitely think it's depression. There are more people who are poor than there are that are wealthy. So it's more people who are complaining about the money that they don't have. I mean, even the middle class complains about the money that they don't have. So there are more people complaining about what they don't have other than what they do. And even the people who do have something, the money that they worked for didn't even bring them the happiness, because money can't even buy that.
I think money is potential happiness, but it seems like the more you do to earn money, the more you have, the more things that pop up that take away your money. So it's kind of like money is potential happiness, but let's say people in poverty, for example, money might be potential happiness, but they have to sacrifice all their money to living, so they can't focus on getting what makes them happy because they have to focus on living. And I think So money itself is kind of like just potential happiness, and it depends on if you have enough left to grasp that potential.
Yeah, so you could have one person living in poverty and their all their money goes to their house, their food, their transportation, whatever it may be. But you could also have a person in a higher middle class that is in a similar situation. Sure, they have a bigger house and they can buy better food and they have better cars, but in the same sense, they could be living somewhat paycheck to paycheck. They just have to be smart with their money. And that potential could bring forth happiness, but it could also bring about the same stress that someone that is barely making it by with the bare minimum is suffering. So it depends on how you use what you have and how you gain that.
I don't like the system of government we have. I don't like the systems of government that we could have.
What
All
I'm
of them are
hearing is
bad.
you want communism.
No. We talked about communism in the last episode, and the
Throwback.
problem with it is everyone gets a job, everyone's equal. But the problem with capitalism is capitalism allows people to fail. That means overall, the happiness factor in both of these is pretty low equally. They both have these. Okay, capitalism has extreme highs and extreme lows. Communism just has this altogether low, but the lows in capitalism outweigh those highs. So they even out to about the same amount of happiness, and it's kind of depressing overall.
Side note from Soundman Ali Chapman, he says join the communist militia. And also, as Ms. Fisher constantly says, I feel like people can learn from happiness, and I guess this comes back down to the type of person you are again. Some people learn from failure, and some people let them bring them down. And I guess it just comes down to that in that case.
I mean, that's true. It's very true. However, back to forms of government and money for that matter. We say money can't buy happiness, but you need money to live, sadly. So I don't think you can be happy if you're dead. So to an extent, we all need money. And the more money, it does make it easier to live. However, just like we were talking about before, there are two sides to every coin, and there are two extremes to every situation. Too little money, you have poverty, which could be in the example of the dropout. And then there is also the example of too much money. Depression kicks in, you don't know what to do, you don't have any true friends, all they want you for is your money. That's where true sadness and depression can kick in, is on either side of this coin. However, I think with the person who dropped out, it is easier for them to find a happy middle than it is for the person who does IB. Because for the person who does IB, it's kind of all or nothing to an extent. They either make it or they don't. But for the person who does maybe not necessarily IB, it could be easier for them to find a job they're happy with and something it's something that they can work with and be happy and make money at the same time.
I believe the difference there is that in the case of like poverty and so forth, I think it's easier for them to be content, but not true happiness. Because I don't know, I feel like the people who develop the long-term goals, or I guess for example, would be the IB student, they set goals for like, this will make me truly happy, and that's what they strive for. But someone in poverty, someone like drug addict, someone who's like down there, they're like, wow, my life sucks, but this seems to make me happy. You know what? I'll focus on this. It seems like there are two different types of happiness there as well. Kind of like the happiness that you really want and the happiness that you're going to get. It's like that one saying, you get what you get. And like they kind of just deal with what they get there.
Well, that's true, but just like Brayson? Is Brayson here?
Boy.
Am I on drugs? Maybe I am that dropout.
Wait,
Brayson. Sorry, I'm not on drugs. That's a disclaimer. Sorry, Brayson. I mean, Grayson said, in capitalism, you can fail hard. And with the IB, you can fail very hard. And like we just established, depression is like public enemy number 1, right? So if you fail IB, that's it. You're done. You are, like, maybe you'll get over it, but at that point you've wasted your whole childhood. Not childhood. You've wasted all of those good years to be depressed or to be stressed. And with the person who dropped out, although Omari is saying it's more about being complacent or maybe just about being okay with where you are, you can also fail by trying to go for your dreams. And there comes an argument where, is it better to try and fail and be sad, or is it better to not try and be complacent and just be happy? I don't know.
All right. This is so sad, guys. I'm in my feels right now, and I'm kind of depressed over
I
here.
love you, Grayson.
But I think I have a connection to make. So the blues are sad. Pepsi is blue. Depression is the enemy. Pepsi is the enemy. We have this thing to go against. Coca-Cola is bae. We should stay with Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
I think my new long-term goal, because I'm not dropping out of IB, just FYI for everyone listening, that's not a smart idea. Well, I don't know. Maybe it is. I'm not going to get into well, we just got into it, so you can decide based on what we talked about. But my new long-term goal, I'm bringing down Pepsi. That's it. Pepsi's done,
I'm bringing down depression.
Yeah, let's
which
do
is
it, guys.
Pepsi. Let's bring them down.
Yeah, let's do it. Get
Let's
that
do
job
it.
done.
What on a live stream we need to burn a Pepsi bottle or something and then like dance around the flames and pour Coke on it. Haha.
I don't
That was a
think we
little
could do
dumb.
that in our location as it stands.
If the studio burns down, it was for a good cause.
Good God.
So
Yeah, get rid of Pepsi. Anti-Pepsi. You know,
Anti-Pepsi.
Good God juice.
Got you.
Sweet Jesus juice. Coca-Cola.
and
Not
for,
sponsored.
for everyone not understanding what's going on right now, please listen to the Christmas podcast.
Episode
It'll make
2.
so much more sense.
It's so good. It's
so good.
It's pretty good.
And
It's a bit more
disclaimer,
light.
we are not going to burn anything down because that is illegal.
Oh
Yet.
yes, not in this. Maybe not in this room.
Not yet, you know.
Yes, we're
Not
not master
ever.
arsonists. I
My name
promise
is
we won't
Caleb
burn
Crawford,
anything.
and I officially state that I'm going to be burning things.
Nope. No. That's not what I said. I said I'm going to be burning depression, which is Pepsi bottles. So I did not say I was burning a thing. I said I'm burning public enemy number 1 at the stake.
You're right.
Liquid depression.
Okay. Liquid depression. Hey, if you're drinking Pepsi right now, you better throw that on the ground. And you better grab the nearest Coke can and guzzle that.
Not even guzzle, just bathe in it. You know,
Just
you gotta,
bathe
yeah,
in
it's
it. Just
too
pour
late.
it all. Pour that sweet God juice all over you.
The secret
Get
to
nice and-
happiness is Coca-Cola.
We found it,
Sure,
guys.
that's
we
it.
did it.
Well, unless you want, actually, we should do a scientific study that proves Coke does not cause obesity because it can. It's so good. It can't cause obesity.
Yeah, it just makes
All
you
that
happy.
sugar?
Hey.
No way.
Hey, maybe it does though, because I mean, Santa's still happy.
But
he's
he's
a little
fat.
obese. but he's-
Hey, maybe. Maybe.
Being fat is true happiness. Think about it. When we get bored, we eat food. And when we eat food, we feel satisfied. But eating a crap ton of food makes you fat. So does fat equal happiness?
I don't know. We'll leave that up to the viewers.
All right, I think we're reaching an end.
Yeah, that got off topic kind of quick.
Yeah. This argument was scattered, smothered, and depressed. And I'm better now that we talked about the commonplace enemy. You know, posters on the wall. The blues are bad.
The blues are bad.
Yeah.
Stay away from depression, and of
Yeah.
course Pepsi.
And I just want to add, like, kind of, I guess, a final note. I guess it's easier for me to say the long-term goal is better because I've already kind of been the person in poverty. I've already been the person just being complacent with what makes them happy. And because I've already been there, I think I know how bad it can be and I know how good it can be. And I just think that the long-term is worth it for me because I've experienced it. And so I think experiences, both in your childhood and in your future, come down to that final decision.
That is a good final statement. We are not this depressing as all the time. Our other episodes are pretty great, and we advise you to check them out. But I do think this concludes episode 4. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. Goodbye.
Please don't drink Pepsi. Please don't.
It's your boy CJ Bill signing out.